has something I thought was in order right now.
Right. All right. We call the Human Resource and Safety Committee meeting to order. There's no public comment on safety. Anyone sign up for public comment? Okay, thank you. Okay, our first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from October 5th. If any necessary changes, I know it's only, well, first of all, I'd say Commissioner Ford won't be here for this meeting, and also Commissioner Adams is running late, so we'll just move forward on. So, Chairman, you and I, take a look at the minutes there for a second, and after that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes.
All right, I second that motion. No further discussion. You and I will vote as to approval.
Approved.
All right, approved. All right. Next item is for approval of appeal process, policy provision, sent by our attorney, Mr. Charlie Dorman.
All right, good morning. What you have for you today is a memo and a resolution. If you'll recall, at our last HR committee meeting, we talked about some revisions. We tabled that discussion to allow more time to review the revisions. A little background on this: the JWSC, of course, maintains a workforce of employees dedicated to operating, maintaining, and expanding the unified system. All JWSC employees, other than the executive director, are expected to perform their work within the standards set forth in the Human Resources Standards of Practice, last amended March 5th, 2015. The SOP is amended from time to time in accordance with the amendment procedure outlined in section 1.2 of the SOP. JWSC Legal Counsel recommends an amendment to section 7.5 of the SOP related to hearing and disciplinary appeals process. I recommend these changes to clarify and streamline that process. The proposed amendments are identified on Exhibit A in your packet, with the final version appearing on as Exhibit B. As you will see, there were multiple steps within the appeals process. We have clarified that. There's actually one hearing that is available during the appeals process. Clarified who would be the hearing officer within that appeals hearing, and made some other clarifications and revisions just to streamline this process. Any questions?
Yes, only one question here. I was looking at, as we move forward here, item number 8, new hires in the introductory period. We're saying that we're not gonna give them any appeal rights within that 1-year period. That's what we're saying?
That's been the policy.
For,
Yes, sir, that part's not a change.
have we had any issue with that?
No, sir. Not that I know of.
Not?
Not that I'm aware of either.
Okay. Okay, Chairman, any comments?
No, this is to streamline the process so we don't have the
Yes, sir.
convoluted.
Yes, sir. And, you know, truth be told, I was looking at that provision and thinking about removing it, but I didn't, you know, I don't have any reason to do that.
Right.
But, you know,
Okay, if it has no consequence, it hasn't been an issue with us, then I don't see no reason to mess with it.
right, that's not.
All right.
Well, it's a probationary period, right?
Right.
Yes, sir.
So,
All right.
all right, since hearing that, sir, there's a motion in order.
I move that we send this to the full commission for.
Okay. Well, that's what we do, is send this, to the full commission. I guess we don't need to, or do we need to vote on that?
Yeah, but commission has to vote on this.
Yeah, I'm talking about, committee meeting, committee.
I did list a motion down there, but
Yeah, that's what.
That's for the regular.
Regular meeting.
Well, I put 2 down there. That's okay.
All right.
Just trying to make it easy.
Yeah, we're sending this to the full committee, today at 2. Thank you, sir, appreciate that very much. Okay, you have some questions, sir? No? All right, we move right along to, discussion. Item number 1, recruiting and termination stats. Cindy Barnhart.
Good morning. In your packet, you have the latest statistics that Bailey Lane prepared. She is out. I was out the last 2 days, she's out the next 2 days. One thing she did ask me to mention is, in months past, we have used Indeed.com to help recruit as well. We haven't used them in quite some time. Bailey said that she did not include the 269 applications through Indeed on these statistics, so, because it does skew the results, so it makes it look different. But since we've not been running the ads for Brunswick-Glynn and Sewer on Indeed for a while, she didn't include those in these numbers. So the positions that we have on there, the oldest post is from May 2017 for equipment operator. The next oldest, also from May, is water distribution crew leader. There is a proposed in-house promotion for that. I think we just got a signed copy today, so that will be coming on.
Are those positions open until filled? That's how you? list
Yes,
them?
yes, unless there's a specific date that we've been given to end those, yes, they're open till filled.
Okay.
The next several are from October. Wastewater treatment plant operator 3, pumping system technician for SPM, utility crew member, water treatment plant operator, wastewater maintenance mechanic, and lift station supervisor. And then the most recent one is from 11/30 is collection system analyst. So year to date, as Bailey has here, is 986 people have applied for positions with your organization. We have 3 recent hires. Caleb Lovell came on board with utility service worker. Annette Cornely came on board in planning and construction as administrative coordinator. And Harrison Jackson joined wastewater treatment plant as a wastewater operator 3 at the end of November. We have 2 gentlemen that will be recognized for attaining licenses, professional licenses, Antonio Simmons and Mark Whitlow, or that they have attained those. Terminations are below, and Bailey included both a line chart and a pie chart on the sources of applications that we've received. The bulk of them come through Brunswick Joint Water and Sewer's website. That's how the bulk of people learn of positions. It is also in the Brunswick News Thursday, Friday, Saturday for any open positions. Is there any questions I can help you with?
No. Jerry?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 2, safety update, Mr. Secretary.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I've got the same spill I've had recently. We're still with 24 days left in the calendar year. We still have only had 2 workers' comp claims all year, which is a great frequency number. One of them was a severe injury, as we all know, so that does hurt some. But it's still to only have 2 in this line of work with the conditions. That's a great number for us. I'm very excited about it. And also, we have our, as you know from last month, we have our work comp policy chosen, renewed, and set for 2018. So looking forward to a good 2018, and hopefully we can keep that frequency number low without the severity coming in with it. Any questions on safety or work comp?
No, except for our employees wearing their safety shoes and, wearing their safety vests. Someone checking that from time to time. I know you put that on the superintendents to do that, I imagine.
Yes, sir. Actually, the supervisors are supposed to make sure their guys on the ground are working properly with the right gear. And then the superintendents check behind the supervisors to make sure they're doing. the
I guess it's good, the fact we haven't had any injuries lately.
Yes, sir. It's been about 6 months since we had the back strain, and the severe injury goes all the way back to January.
Now, what about the safety classes and so forth? What, people have been attending those? Are you having-
Yes, sir, they have, and we're still trying to come up with a training regiment for new hires, as well as a yearly for the employees we have now. I'm looking at getting some confined space, and we're needing some more flagger training here shortly, and I'm gonna have a quote soon for Mr. Duncan to look over on those 2 items.
Okay. And we do the safety awards in the July timeframe.
Yes, sir, we run that with the fiscal year,
And
and comp runs on the calendar year.
how many people are still in, how many sections are still in the running for safety awards?
Well, they're all in the running because it's done on a quarterly basis. I want to say we've only had 2 or 3 so far in this, and we don't meet until next month for January, but I only have 1 incident right now to even go over with them. I want to say only 2 or 3 crews have lost it for a quarter so far.
Thank
I
you
would
for
say
being
3 at the
safe.
maximum. I did not record that, and haven't looked at it in a month, so I'm not
Okay,
positive.
now, our system is predicated on supervisors supervising and superintendents supervising, but do we have an independent person that goes out and visits job sites?
Well, I do, but it's not monthly or anything like that. It's usually once or twice a year. And Mike Rippenhoff at the Zenith, he usually comes down and we'll hit a couple of job sites when he's here as well.
Given the moves that we've been making towards consolidating operations and safety and everything, can we have a safety officer as an additional duty who would drive around to the various job sites unannounced to check? Because I know that when I go around on occasion, I see people without PPE.
Well, I mean, that's a call for you guys to make. If you have someone that you were wanting to kind of put that side hat on, that they take some time every week or every month or every quarter to do that. I can try to ramp it up and get out there more myself, but, I mean,
Mr. Johnson, what do you think of that?
I like the idea. It's one of the things, with the budget situation the way it is, the issue becomes, do we swap out one of the existing positions that we need to do in other functions to do this?
Well, I don't want it to be a
No,
full-time, I
Oh,
don't,
It's
this
additional
should be a
duty. Yes, it is.
full-time.
An add-on?
Yeah,
Let me
just,
talk, let me talk about it with my superintendents and see if we can, like, once a week or whatever, get a supervisor, different supervisors, rotate them in to go out and inspect the jobs of all the crews.
yeah, I think we need to do that, because,
I agree. That's
you know, you have the superintendent that's out there, and he probably's not gonna say anything to his own people.
He does.
He'll say, get your stuff
I have
on,
been,
but,
I differ, I will say that on one of the ride-arounds I did, I had the superintendent stop and read him the riot act.
well,
I know that it happens. But, maybe not to the frequency it needs to.
yeah. I mean, I was pleased that when I stopped to visit a job site and didn't have my stuff with me, they reminded me that I didn't have my PPE and to stay back, which is what I expected.
Right, exactly. Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it. All right. Okay. Item number 3, delinquent account cutoff process. I asked Jay Sellers to put this on, to give us a little small briefing. Basically, we have been in the news lately about what the process about what we're about ready to do, cut people water off if their bill is in excess of over $100 for a certain number of days. I just wanted to find out about the process, update us where we are with all that. So, Mr. Sellers?
Yes, sir, will do. For what it's worth, the commissioners received a report last week following a request from Taylor Cooper of the Brunswick News on the facts and figures. Wednesday of last week, when that call came in, what we knew was the number of aged accounts, but we don't necessarily know the routes that those fall into or the district even at this point. So what I'll speak of is basically on the aggregate total of the arrears, and then for the next finance committee meeting, we'll have the breakdown by district and by route, because that's how we'll actually process the daily cutoff. So the rest of this commentary is related to that. We want to go into it knowing that we have enough staff members to accomplish the mission, and we've been looking at just that big number. So before we get into the cutoff process itself, we'll have more details, only because the reporting is not so detailed at the moment, but we will have it that way by the next finance committee meeting. Having said that, I'm going to start off with just a brief couple of paragraphs related to that report that made it into the Brunswick News. And as usual, it's a 2-page report that got boiled down to a couple of sentences, so it bears repeating some of those details. Especially when there are those in the community that believe that they're going to have 10 days past their due date or they're going to get cut off. There's a lot more commentary behind that, so I want to lay that out and make it easier to understand. It's less of a threat is what I'm aiming at. So, as far as the facts on the overdue accounts, every month we bill approximately 26,000 to 27,000 customers. We have around 30,000 service connections, but between 3,000 to 4,000 of those are not active. And that number stays fairly steady. We do have new construction that causes us to have an increase in the new taps, but then we also have older facilities and older houses that are no longer using water and sewer services. Closed. So in November 2017, we billed 26,892 customers. Of those, 30%, that's 7,867 customers, were not paying their balance down to zero and were considered delinquent by 30 days or more. So that's the big number, the 3.4 million in arrears. But our cutoff program will have us concerned with any account with a balance of $100 or greater in arrears. That would mean that we're going to be focused on around 4,600 accounts. That's 17% of the total number of customers, totaling 3.2 million. And our cutoff fee is $135. Putting this out in the news the way we did using the newsletter that went to all customers in September, saying that the delinquent account policy focusing on those that were essentially $500 in arrears or higher, got the word out in September. We were mailing letters individually to those that were on the top of the heap, more or less. And then next month, we'll send out another newsletter that says that we're going into greater efforts to recover down to the $100. And because we had been using that commentary in the Finance Committee, the Commission meeting, and the Public Information Committee meeting, Taylor Cooper wanted to go ahead and get that story out as well. So I believe the story, the news itself has gotten into the public in a very fast way. People are communicating regarding that on social media. But the misinformation that we need to clarify is that it's not just you have a $100 balance on your bill this month and you have 20 days to pay it, or 10 days later we're going to cut you off. So let's talk in more detail about what that means to be in arrears versus what's on your current payment or your current bill. The following methodology then is going to apply to the cutoff procedure. It's going to begin January 1st, 2018. Any account that has a balance over $100 that is already 30 days or more in arrears prior to the January billing will see 3 dates on their statement. They're going to see the billing date. And let's say, just as a hypothetical, and this is actually typical, we won't bill a route until January 4th. Then the due date's going to be listed, such as January 20th, 20 days from the billing date. Then the cutoff date would be listed in a third block. It's not on there now. That would start going out into the January statements, not the December. The cutoff date, such as February 4th, would be the next business day, 10 days from that due date. Ideally, the arrears limit would also be $100 per residential equivalent unit on residential accounts, or $150 per REU on commercial accounts, which is the typical deposit on accounts. Because the intent here is twofold. The first thing is we are seeking to increase cash flow for daily administration, operations, and maintenance needs. And number two, the bigger point here, is that we want to reduce our exposure to bad debt write-offs when closed accounts are sent to collections. And the bulk of those accounts that are written off and sent over, they're never recovered. The bulk, the majority of our accounts that are sitting in collections, and I'll have those figures for the Finance Committee, but essentially sending something to collections gets it off of our books as a receivable. Then if it ever comes into the collection agency, then they take their cut and they give us the balance. Payment plans, arrangements that are set up at the collection agency are their business. We don't typically engage the customer regarding what account they have at collections. The that means rather that our failure to keep the arrears on monthly billings down and the amount of the deposit matching that means that our exposure is so great that we could potentially have significant financial loss on an account that goes to collections and is never collected. We've been essentially giving away our services to some people. We're just doing it very slowly over time. As you will see, we're not going to be moving forward on cutoffs until no sooner than the first week of February due to the amount of time that it takes to get through the due date, the cutoff date, and then actually perform the work. So I'll be giving the customers essentially December and January a reasonable payment plan opportunity to help them avoid being on that cutoff list. Since all of that is more so the domain of the Finance Committee, I'll have the numbers prepared for them, and then we'll talk about that in the commission meeting following that meeting. For your purposes, though, I'd like to lay out, since we have to practically approach this like we know we can take on the mission, what we intend to do staff-wise to be able to accomplish that. So early estimates point towards a workload of approximately 200 meter turnoff requests going out per business day until we're able to reduce the volume of accounts in arrears. We're naturally going to see a reduction in the monthly workload because we're going to demonstrate that we're going to keep our end of the agreement. If there's a date listed on the bill as cutoff, then we need to hold to that and be faithful to execute on that day. It's a daunting task. There's a mountain of arrears. This is not something we take lightly. But once we get our rhythm, the meter service technicians will be processing all of these work orders for both the turn on and the subsequent for the turn off and then the subsequent turn on. Ideally, somebody that's cut off is going to immediately come back in to us and sign up a payment plan arrangement, and we're going to go back out and turn the service back on. Our intention is not to deep six our customers, to get rid of folks. That's not our intention at all. So for the coming February, until that rhythm's been established, we're going to be gathering the support of a minimum of 22 staff members that have already been identified from other divisions that are going to be most effective in assisting us with the cutoff. So for meter services, obviously we have 5 technicians that do this day in and day out. They process these work orders. They know where all the meters sit. Customer service has one customer service representative, the lead customer service rep, that moved over from meter services this year. So she's familiar with the location of the meters. Facilities maintenance has 3 technicians, one of whom used to be the warehouse supervisor and knows where the meters are. So he used to assist with servicing meters as well. Planning and construction has 6 staff members that are going to help. We have 3 inspectors that used to be on a water distribution crew, and 1 GIS tech that has not been on a water distribution crew, has not been on a meter service crew, but because he actually does the processing of the water, more or less the meter being located on the map, he knows where the meters are located, and he can pull that up on GIS and get it down to the meter 3 feet. And then we have 2 locators that are in the planning and construction division that were at one point on a water distribution crew. Systems pumping and maintenance has 1 construction crew member that used to be on water distribution crew. You see the trend here is that when people have left water distribution, we still want to take advantage of their cross-training more or less and put them back into the field to do these turnoffs. Water production has 3 techs that will be able to assist, and then water distribution has 4 techs that will be able to assist, and that is going to vary because we didn't intentionally want to throw all of these work orders at water distribution because they're the ones that are standing by to repair the main leaks when they pop up. I believe if we put any significant amount of these work orders in the hands of water distribution, they're going to sit in the truck and become a low priority if we have a main break. That's reasonable. Everybody else is going to be fairly well balanced. So we're going to provide the tools and the training for anybody that doesn't have the confidence that they can go out there and spot the meter in an expedient manner. We're not looking to put people out there that are going to be hunting around with a stick trying to find these meters. A lot of these meters, since they haven't been touched in so long, especially accounts that aren't in flux, apartment complexes or basically any situation where there's a lot of flow of closing accounts and opening accounts, we have a reason to go touch the meter and get a final reading and then start the service back up. For the most part, the majority of our meters do not see a hand more than once a year. Eyeballs do not look at the head of that register because we're driving by and getting the readings remotely via that automated meter reading. The reading is transmitted. So specifically with the meter service technicians, they're going to begin their workday working the cutoff list. We know there's going to be other duties that are going to be taking priority, especially in the other divisions. So we're going to have to pepper these work orders to the people, especially with this water production. They're doing a route. They're driving around all over the systems every single day because they have to take samples in every district. If I put a work order in the hands of somebody that's already headed to that district, that's great. If somebody's going to the South Mainland to take water samples, please go do some cutoff. There may be very few there, so we may have 1 or 2 people that are doing cutoff on the South Mainland. If we have somebody that's going to the island, the intent is to, with the meter service technicians, take advantage of the laptops that we've now distributed to all 5 of those staff, so they don't have to make trips in. We honestly want to cut down on the paper traffic, because if I do a cutoff work order right now, let's say at 10 o'clock we put a work order in to turn somebody's service off, and then the technician comes back in and finds out that customer has already gone into customer service and signed up for service. We don't want that technician driving across the causeway 3 times that day trying to accommodate that. So the purchase of the laptops and the laptop mounts and them being able to safely and accurately, timely, very quickly receive those work orders in the field is working out very well. Our folks in meter services, the supervision side, they drop a work order into a folder. It doesn't even have to be printed out. And then they can pull that up in the vehicle. They'll get a more or less notification on their email. So pull the car over, see what needs to be done on the island. If nothing else needs to be done, they're going to come back across the causeway and their work day's done. But we...
Okay,
Go.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
While we're talking, the
Okay.
process of the cutoffs is when the person that's gonna do the cutoff goes to the resident or business, is he going to contact them before he cuts it off and tell them, I'm here to cut off your water because of non-payment before he does that?
Historically, that has not been done. If we've alerted you that you have because keep in mind, these are people that have already received a bill last month that said that this amount's due and it's not been paid, so they're already in arrears. That on the commercial side, that's where it becomes a little more sticky, but on the residential side, historically, we have not. Because what happens is if I knock on the door and I say I'm about to turn your service off, we're now gonna spend the next 30 minutes in debate. We're gonna have somebody say, please don't turn it off, I'm gonna send somebody down to the office to pay.
No, I just want contact made,
Right.
but there's also something else that you need to look at as a problem, and that is if you have a health issue, that would be exacerbated if we cut the water off.
Part of the reason why we don't have the stats on how many are overdue on in arrears right now is because that list is going to be filtered by those that are, from a health standpoint, we can't turn you off. Like we've historically had a problem with the retirement homes. I can't turn off a retirement home without notifying environmental health. If I contact them via phone or if Frank...
So we know, we have a list.
We have a list, yes.
Okay.
Those people will go on a payment plan. So by default, that $4,700, for 4,700 accounts right now is much lower. So we're going to be taking out the Board of Education, because they're on the arrears list, by the way, $300,000 or $400,000. We're going to be taking out the hospital. We're going to be taking out Pinova. There are some customers that have historically paid 30 days late because that's the way their accounting works. That's not going to eliminate, really debate for the Finance Committee and then for the Commission, the late fee. How do we process if we're, by mandate, asking the customer to have that as a consequence of not paying on time, that you have a 1.5% late fee? Is that going to go on all customers or just a select?
So Jay, you just said something about some of the accounts are going to be, we can't do anything for school board, because Pino, because of, now the paper did not report all that, so it seems that we still have a $2 million deficit, which we do, a delinquent account, which we do. However, it's predicated with other things in that.
So yes, sir. Like I say, it was a 2-page report. When you pull out sound bite out of a 2-page report,
Well, I'm saying, what's been put out there is really, I can't say fake news, but it's skewed.
it's half the story.
Yeah, it's skewed, and it's making us look bad with all that. That's all I'm trying to say. And
We're
maybe I need
getting
to talk
more
to Taylor, you know.
And I wish you were here to defend
She was
himself.
here too.
Well,
But yeah, go ahead, keep on going.
Yeah, so I know, which is to say that by the time we get to the Finance Committee meeting, that number is going to be reduced drastically from the 4,700. And then we also hope that we have a run on people that are looking to sign up a payment plan, because the payment plans are generous. We're certainly not looking to hold people to something that's unreasonable. But here's where it gets interesting though. In some cases, the time of day is less important than that we do them on that day. my experience with the city of Brunswick and then Caleb's experience with the way the cutoff was processed at Glynn County was very rigid in that we processed cutoff before a particular time of day to give people the opportunity to come in and pay. Conventional wisdom says that we would want to cut people off early in the day to give them that time to come in and sign up for service, or I'm sorry, to sign up for a payment plan and then make a payment and get turned back on before 2 o'clock. Because in the rate resolution, we require a $70 service charge to turn on same day after 2 o'clock because of the workflow. The meter service technicians are going to leave the office with their last work of the day at 2 o'clock. If they leave here and then they're over on the island, and by the way, that's going to be a little more flexible now because we have the technology in the field to allow them to get the work orders before they cross back over the causeway after 4, so they can leave at 5. This is all it means to avoid overtime. Somebody has to pay for that. The reality is that most of these customers work from 8 to 5. The timing of the cutoff is irrelevant at that point. If I cut you off at 8, you're not going to know until 5. If I cut you off at 10, you're not going to know until 5. If I cut you off at 2, you're not going to know until 5.
Same thing on a Friday.
If I cut you off on Friday, so Friday's an interesting thing. I'd like to compromise and say that we would arrange the cutoff date to, and this is done on the system side, so nobody has to manually do it. I would like to avoid cutoff on Friday. I think that's a very, very generous thing for us to say that we're going to put it on the following business day. Holidays, obviously, are going to have to be accounted for, because if I put the cutoff date on the bill as July 4th, everybody knows that we're lying at that point. So the system's going to have to be intelligent enough to say that I'm going to put this on the next business day, and let's exclude Friday and holidays, because in that regard, we are nice people. But the truth is, to be clear, we're not excited about cutoff. I'm not looking at this as a profit center. I'm not looking at, wow, look at the $135 cutoff fees that are suddenly going to hit our budget, and that's going to boost our cash flow because now we're billing people for all of these cutoff fees and all of the after-hours turn-on fees. I believe that would not be fair to our customers. The fact is, we're going to get some of that. We're not going to get some of that. We're going to find that some of these, probably a large percentage of the 4,700 accounts are closed accounts, people that have moved out of an apartment or have gotten. We encountered, by the way, people that have been incarcerated and they have no means to tell us. That's not one of their phone calls they make. And I need to go close my account at the water department. So that does happen. It does. So we have people that are no longer able to communicate with us to close that account, but guess what? Every month we send them a bill, at least for the fixed charges, and we're billing somebody that's never going to be able to pay until they're available to come see us again. It's not fair to us or the rest of the ratepayers. So speaking of those ratepayers, I believe that we're not going to get much love from those people that believe that we're picking on perhaps the lower income segment of our customers. But I also believe that we're not going to get much love from those people that believe that they're being the majority of our customers, over 22,000 that are paying on time, are then having to more or less finance the slow payment from the minority of the customers. So we're trying to balance this out where we're not being abusive, but we're also following the ordinance, and we're being fair to keep the cash flow coming in. Looking through the history of the accounts in arrears points to a situation where the monthly charges are reasonable, but there's a failure to pay month on end. We pull up the accounts where people are saying, my bill doubled, or you're hitting me with a $500 bill, and then we look at the account, and the monthly billing amount might be $50 or $60, but you haven't made a payment consistently in a year. There has been no consequence for that in the past. We haven't been doing cutoff, we haven't been doing late fee. Some of that, by the way, is by our own decision, because in the transition from one billing system to the other, there's a list of low-hanging fruit. There's a list of things that have to be done in a timely manner. And one of those things that's very critical to the success of our debt collection is the processing of mailed-in payments. The bulk of our payments that are mailed in are going to a lockbox. We transitioned from an Atlanta lockbox to an Orlando lockbox. And there's some details in that are still flawed. So once we iron out those details, then we're going to see the cash flow processed a lot quicker. Now I say cash flow, in that case checks. And then we have the folks that are begging for us to drop or eliminate or I should say reduce or eliminate the cost to pay online, so that we can, if we did that, potentially reduce our traffic in the lobby. So there's a lot of variables there that are playing into this, but the most essential thing is, if you pay every 30 days and you pay as agreed, you're not going to be cut off. If you sign up for a payment plan, which is generous, we're going to offer you 6-month terms, 12-month terms, or 24-month terms, depending on your balance and arrears, you won't be cut off. it's not a situation where we started to see this huge increase in arrears following the July 1st implementation of the new billing system. This has been something that has been consistent since 2008. But we, for whatever reason, just didn't execute a consistent payment plan. And it's not going to be resolved in 1 month. We're likely going to see some difficulty in getting the customers to come in before that cutoff date, and sadly, and we've seen this happen before. There was a period of time at the city where for months on end, people would be happier getting cut off and having that balance added to, or that fee added to their balance, because at that point we didn't offer payment plans. We would just turn you back on if you made any payment at all. Then we instituted a payment plan and we started to correct that. So the deviation from not having a consequence to now offering payment plans was the right first step. And then doing cutoff if you didn't sign up for a payment plan or didn't pay your balance, I believe is the right way to go. But in terms of the staffing needs, I believe that we have that well satisfied. The large unknown right now is how many we're gonna have per day. And once we narrow down that number and present that to the finance committee, that's gonna result in giving us an idea of, in addition to all the other duties that we all have, nobody is sitting around waiting on cutoff work orders. Are we gonna end up finding ourselves having to do some of this work after hours, or having to compensate the workload, make some compromises in order for us to make this one of the highest priorities in the company? Because if we don't consider cash flow king, then all of the other things that are in the periphery don't get paid for. We're gonna have a hard time with this process negatively affecting our cash flow, meeting all of the obligations that we have.
Thank you. Got a couple questions
Yes, sir.
with this, and then I'll move on.
Okay.
Do all our accounts have new meters?
We have no meters in the system that are older than 2006 or 2008, and
all
we
of our
have,
radio read?
yes, sir. We have very few that are not, and I believe those are like the industrial, the sewer flow meters. Some things had to be read manually, but when we're talking regular commercial and
Yeah, okay.
residential accounts, they're all radio read, yes, sir.
Also, I want to tell you, I know you have a hard job. I know you have to change the culture of this community. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard starting out. There's going to be some blows thrown at you and JWSC.
Yes, sir.
But if we don't change it, we continue to do the same thing we've been doing, and it's not going to work. So I applaud you for stepping up and do that. And I appreciate you giving us update on this too as well. And I will attend the finance committee to get those stats. I need to find out those stats about, where those accounts are.
Yes, sir.
So I appreciate that. So please be looking at that. All right.
Thank you very much.
Now, one of the things that we talked about today and try to establish is somebody to establish a charity that people can give money to help people in a class that I would call indigent, that are fixed income, to help pay their bills.
And then the Roundup program.
And the Roundup, we need to get that, when is that gonna be ready to go live?
We would need to select a vendor first. And we did hold a couple of interviews with some vendors, so I think that could
Okay.
be accomplished relatively.
How long have we been trying to find a vendor?
How long?
Yeah,
We started that process over a year ago.
okay, and we still haven't figured that out?
It was put on hold.
That was because we couldn't get the customer service portion of the accounting system. So we need to take that off the hold and get that in the accounting system so we can get, so we have that Roundup.
I'll get with Pam and we'll get that process started then.
Thanks, John, but one of the things I want to make sure we understand about that Roundup program is we got about 27,000 active accounts of those 32,000 meters. If every residential and commercial customer decided to round up, we might be talking about 30,000.
I know, considering how much is out there today
Yeah.
versus how much it's gonna create, it ain't gonna solve the problem.
Not
No
really
way.
close.
But the idea is that as you work to pull this mountain down, this mountain over here will grow, and at some point, maybe it will really help offset some of it.
Sure. It'll help that one person. And we spoke about an account earlier today, that it would help one person in a significant way if we had a $10,000 donation that month. Oh, and this, by the way, it's worth saying, we've never denied somebody the opportunity to contribute. So if somebody comes in and is a whale with pockets full of cash and says they want to help somebody out, like we used the example this morning, like when you go to the mall, there's a Christmas tree. You can walk up to the tree, you can grab a name, and I don't think it's a name, I think it's basically imagine a number, and you can give a toy to a child that doesn't have any means to get Christmas gifts. In the same way, if somebody walks into customer service right now and somebody says, I'd like to help somebody out that's in need, we wouldn't turn that down. It doesn't happen. Perhaps because we don't advertise that as a need, but the need is certainly well known now.
I also think too is that we're gonna pass on these, the collection or pass on people who can't pay to other organizations. I mean, it's gonna be passed down.
We do that now, yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is other social organization who does help people pay who can't pay. So all that means is that they will have to ramp up somewhat, because it's a requirement to pay your water bill or you get different water.
Yes,
So evidently, I'm pretty sure that these other organizations will understand that fact too, that, you know, we are no longer gonna be the people who will actually just let you continue on. We're not gonna do that anymore. So, they'll ramp up.
But I don't want to be all head and no heart. We do have alternatives. We obviously have no reserves to be able to satisfy that, and that was, of course, why in 2014, the commission was wise enough to even pursue the Roundup program. So we need to have a full list of opportunities for people to have that satisfied, even if they can't get the cash directly from us. Yes, sir.
Well, the hospital writes off quite a number of charges, to the tune of millions of dollars, I know. We haven't gotten there yet, so.
Yes, sir. Only in the sense, like I say, a completely different conversation, but the collections write-off procedure might be another one we start to consider to tackle, because that number, it's large enough that we can manage that a little better as far as what we allow. If the debt is allowed to exceed, and perhaps I made that a little confusing earlier, if you have a single-family residence and your deposit's $100, I should never let your balance exceed $100, because if you close the account, I have to bill you the final charges against that $100. So it may be a case where if somebody is on the cutoff list, we may have to raise that deposit so that we can reduce our exposure. We may find ourselves having to raise the deposit on commercial accounts as well, because sometimes the REU is not corrected accurately in relation to their water flow. The rate resolution allows us to figure their REU one of two ways, either based on the facility table or based on the flow, whichever is higher. So we may see cases where monthly water flow on a residential is higher than 9,000 gallons per month, which is our standard residential REU, 300 gallons per day times 30. We may need to be concerned with that, is what I'm saying, because the collection management can be repaired in the back end if we fix the deposit management in the front end. I want to have a lower arrears so that if you do close your account, you can't just walk away from your balance and send it to a collection agency. Some people don't care about credit. And so that's not much of a threat. If I tell you I'm going to report this to the credit bureaus and you're never going to be able to get water utility with us again unless you pay off that balance. Okay.
Okay, Jay, I really appreciate
Thank you very much.
update and outlining the process.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully, like I say, I wish the news would have been here so they can clarify some of the things they put out there.
Indeed, and you'll see me on Facebook responding in those articles, because there's always more to the story than gets reported in the sound bites. But we try to fill in the gaps. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Also, Commissioner Adams, thank you for coming to, I know you had an issue, but glad you're here, glad you're here, sir. Okay, now we're down to Executive Director's update. You have anything for us?
No, sir, I don't have any additional put out there today.
Okay, well, Mr. Domini, anything you'd like to add before we?
I've said my piece.
Yes, sir, okay. Chairman? Mr. Adams? Okay, since we've come to the end of our regular printed agenda. No other things need to be added to this agenda or discussed. We shall adjourn. Stand adjourned.